they're all around this predictive programming idea that we should prepare for something, that something's about to go down. That and then time travel. You got Fringe. That's all about time travel. Flash Forward was about time travel. The idea that there's dimensions, the idea that with CERN there are dimensions that can be established. They're already talking about the possibility they can break into the 11th dimension. If all of these things are part of pop science and what I call pop paranormal, then there's every reason that you should be covering them, and that I cover them all the time, and I get people to think about, and it's not that I'm believing it; it's that I want you to consider it. And that's the whole thing. Consider these stories and then try to work them into why people act the way they do. People are moved by these things. They actually move on their myths and their belief systems, and that's what I talk about. It's not about, I want you to believe in UFOs. I want you to consider them. That's what I want you to do. So.
Well, and that is the beliefs, I think, takes us to the weekend we're entering. We're coming up on Halloween. We're coming up on this bizarre, contentious election season that we've seen. Yeah. Of course, you covered the Christine O'Donnell situation.
That's another thing. Christine O'Donnell. What? We're talking about politics, and what creeps in? Witchcraft. Okay, so if what I'm talking about isn't relevant, then why the hell did we even give a damn about whether or not she was a witch? Are you a good witch or a bad witch? No, you're a bad liar, is what you are. And that's the thing, is that if you can see that there is paranormal within the normal and that people are affected by it, that's when you realize that, yes, what I'm talking about does have some credibility and it does have merit, and you should consider it, because these people believe. It's not what I believe, it's what they believe, and they are the ones that are running the country. So if they believe this stuff, you're going to have to deal with their belief systems, not your own.
And I believe I just saw this morning something maybe on Twitter or wherever it was that the O'Donnell camp has basically tried to nix the whole date story
because it was a lie in the first place,
and now they're saying, "Oh no, that didn't happen at all."
She didn't date a witch, and she didn't dabble in witchcraft at all. She just said it because she wanted to look cool in front of all those guys that she was sitting in that panel with on Bill Maher's show. And it's been done before. Many Christians, they don't feel like their lives are interesting, so they have to make up, well, I did a lot of drugs back in the day.
Yes.
And like Mike
Warnke. I was in the grip of Satan.
Yeah, Mike Warnke. I used to drink my own urine, and I used to kill babies. Well, where are the babies you killed, and where's your hepatitis that you have? It doesn't make sense. None of that stuff's real.
There's another report, and it's all, folks, all laid out on MediaMonarchy.com. There's a whole slew of ridiculous news posted up over the last couple of days to kind of get you through this weekend. But a report from, I think, the Belief blog on CNN or one of their sort of religious sub-pages.
Right.
Saying, the power of prayer, that, everybody from O'Donnell to Obama says, yeah, prayer gets me by, and I believe in it.
They even got a praying dog on TV the other night. I actually was really kind of, and if you think that what I talk about is bizarre, go to the belief area of CNN where they sit there and talk about a dog that prays and says grace over his food. I mean, that to me is that's just as weird as anything else I talk about. And you're right. It's they have that section there because people, damn, if they don't want to lose grip of their beliefs and externalize their gods and pray to them and have them come to them in flying saucers. I mean, what I talk about is not weird. What I'm talking about is it's called core belief. And your core belief, you believe a lot of things in your subconscious that you wouldn't normally talk about. And I basically expose it, and people sometimes get uncomfortable with it, I think. They get uncomfortable.
We also have these fights that broke out during Rand Paul and Jack Conway at the Kentucky Senate
That girl
race.
getting her head stepped on or her shoulders stepped on. It was horrible.
And there are other videos that show, I believe, the other side doing similar things, that it was essentially, a mob situation where there were no good sides.
And you know why they do it? Because they believe that those bastards care about them. So we're going to vote them in because they're going to change the world. No, they're not. They're not going to change the world. They're going to F it up more than they've done it before. It's like I said I was on some interview and I says, I'd wipe my butt with my ballot and it'd still get me the same kind of value. And I'm sorry that I have to break it to you guys, but it's not about red state or blue state. It's the state versus you. And the time you figure out that the state is it's like going to a casino. They treat you like gods. They give you health care. They give you all these other things. I mean, they give you a limo to ride around in Vegas. They give you hookers. They give you free drinks if you gamble. The government does the same things. They'll give you health care, they'll give you unemployment, they'll give you all those things, treat you like a god. And then what happens is you figure out, oh, the House wins. And they have more of a chance of winning because they know more than you do.
The House always wins.
That's what the government is. It's like no matter who you vote for, no matter what you get behind, no matter what project you're up on, the House always wins. And it's always calculated that you lose. You may get ahead, maybe, I don't know, a little bit of time, but then they'll find a way to come back and say, hey, wait a minute, you got ahead. That's called fraud. That's called securities exchange. That's called, they'll find ways to basically screw you. And that's
selectively enforced, of course.
Exactly, selectively enforced.
I think the tendency is to get everybody geared into the big show, the big presidential elections, the big kind of big name races that, again, involve one of the wrestling, Vince McMahon's wife of WWE is running in Connecticut, and just it almost seems like the California recall election from a few years ago. If you remember that?
Yeah,
now it's just kind of countrywide.
It's a circus.
But ultimately, and we've gone over polls on here that have said that most folks would say, if you picked people randomly out of the phone book, it'd probably be just as well.
Well, I've heard this before, but people who want to be president, people who want to be governor, people who don't vote for them. Vote for the guy that doesn't want it. Because chances are he's going to work hard because he's going to have that place in his lap. That's where true heroes exist. Heroes are people who are in a situation where they have to act, and they act on instinct, not someone who gets paid to do it, or like your politicians. Politicians aren't heroes; they're idiots. Look at Barack Obama. We had this you had this charismatic guy, and he was so, he'd say, yes, we can, blah, 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 getting out there and being this true trooper. And now he's like saying, well, we can, but it's going to take some time. Well, duh. But, you got so worked up into the idea that you were going to change things, and you didn't change anything. We're still at war. The Patriot Act is still in effect. All equal rights are basically being stolen from us, and you're giving us a half-assed healthcare system that everybody who's on the left is like going, oh, praise Obama. No, don't, because it's not going to work the way you think it's going to work. And this bull about global warming and global sustainability and global climate disruption, or whatever they're calling it this day, what marketing thing isn't working, is not going to work at all. You're going to be taxed through your gills. Where's the revolution? They're doing it. We're losing. That's where the revolution is. I'm sorry to tell you that, but holding up a sign in the street saying "down with this," it's not going to get you anything.
No,
it's going to get people pissed off at you. That's all it's going to get.
And we had Obama here just over a week ago on the 20th. He was at the convention center. Of which I'm wearing a hat today as I need a haircut. I'm just hiding it with my Oregon Convention Center hat. But there were protests, of course, outside there. But ultimately, is that the thing? Is ultimately the old school protests a totally dead paradigm?
No, they're worthless. They are worthless, and I'll tell you why they're worthless. Because unless you can get into the system and sabotage it from within, it's not going to work. And people are all saying, well, if I do this and I get in the face, no, it's just going to get people pissed off. And people will say, well, that's all I can do. No, there's other things you do. There are grand juries. There are when you get on jury duty, instead of getting on jury duty and find a way to fool the lawyers into thinking that you're going to do what they want, get into the jury, and then do what you want.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of things you can do. And I always say, people complain about taxes and how they're paying too high of taxes. Well, how many people have not been able to afford to pay their taxes, go to court, and you're sitting on a jury and say, well, that son of a bitch didn't pay his taxes, I have to pay mine, and then you put him in jail. Well, we can control this. We can control the juries. We can control how the courts go. We can control everything. But no, people are demanding more cameras. They're demanding all this. And you know what? Those people we need to ostracize. Not people who talk about UFOs and aliens, but the people who are like saying, well, I'm all for the cameras because that would help everything out. Well, you know what? Crime still exists even when cameras are rolling. In fact, it even gives people a challenge to say, look at me, I'm killing somebody, or look at me, I'm ripping off something.
Exactly. As soon as you say, this can't be broken, then you've got people who want to really try to break it.
I just don't understand the logic here. In England, they're fighting against everything we're fighting for now. I mean, we're fighting for more police on the streets, and we're fighting for all these other, I mean, at least most of America is. I mean, people who are listening to your show aren't. They're going to say, oh, Clyde, you're wrong. I'm not thinking that way. Well, of course you're not thinking that way, because you're listening to MediaMonarchy.com. You're listening to Ground Zero. You're on ZeroPointRadio.com. You're going to BlacklistedNews.com, and you're going to Alex Jones and InfoWars, and you're going to all these places because you're getting informed the information that's important. But then, you know, there are more people that are unaware, and the minute you start talking about this, I mean, I just put a commercial up for reverse speech. I'm going to be doing a reverse speech event with David John Oates, and I put this reverse speech event up with this little girl singing, you know, we're going to spread happiness, the Obama kids. People were just livid. They're going, what the hell is this? I've never seen this before. And the fact that you played it backwards and saying, thank you, Satan. Oh, you're a bastard.
I've got that clip. We'll play that when we get into, I think, a lot of the events that you've got planned this weekend.
A lot of cool things in the works.
Probably the whole second hour just discussing those things.
Sure.
But as my thought train derails, I know one of the top things I have on MediaMonarchy.com tied in with the upcoming election is, of course, Proposition 19 in California. Now, I know you've discussed this a little bit, and ultimately I'm a firm believer that industrial hemp could be the revelation and the revolution that we really need for food and paper and power. And
but it's always been there.
It's always been there, and that's why places and organizations like DuPont and Standard Oil and all the same cronies have
William
always
Randolph Hearst
kept it down. Yeah. The man skewered by Orson Welles and Citizen Kane.
Yes, I mean, that's why we still have this marijuana hang-up. It's because of William Randolph Hearst.
So let's listen to a clip that'll give us a little bit of a rundown on this California Proposition 19. And in-studio guest Clyde Lewis of GroundZeroMedia.org. We will discuss this afterwards. California Prop 19, a giant leap towards ending the fraudulent drug war.
California voters will weigh in on legalizing marijuana for recreational use. Proposition 19 would allow possession of small amounts of marijuana and permit local governments to authorize and tax the sales.